Greetings. A new age arose. The age of the great predator cities. Survival of the fastest.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2018 dystopian science fiction steampunk adventure film Mortal Engines. The film is directed by Christian Rivers and it stars Hera Hilmer, Robert Sheenan, Hugo Weaving, Layla George and Stephen Lang. Right, okay. The film is a first-time watch for me. I recently did a top 10 list on the channel where I discussed the top 10 biggest box office bombs of the last decade, and this was on the list. It made it didn't make any money. It made a massive loss, which is why it was on that list. But it's a film that has always interested me. It's always kind of been there on my watch list. I remember the trailers at the time when this one came out being really quite interested in this. I remember seeing the trailer for this for the first time in the cinema. I don't remember what film I was watching in the cinema, but I thought the trailer looked fantastic. And then it seemed to just disappear. I think it kind of came out at the cinemas, didn't do well, and it kind of disappeared without a trace. And it's just now remembered, I suppose, as one of those films that didn't do well and was a box office failure. Well, a lot of people have kind of said and recommended this to me and said it's actually a pretty decent film, so I thought I would give it a go, which is why it's a first time watch review. And I have to say, quite enjoyed this. It's definitely quite an entertaining watch. And for those of you that don't know, it's based on a series of novels. It's set about 1,000 years in the future or something like that. Earth has perished for the most part, and the wasteland out in the world is a very, very dangerous place to be. So most people travel around city-sized machines. In actual fact, the baddie of this film is London itself. So you basically travel the wastelands and these mechanized cities, swallowing up the smaller cities than you, and kind of recycling all their goods to kind of improve your own huge city. So we have Hugo Weaving's character, Valentine, who is like one of the main people in London. He's looking for some old tech, if you like, so that he can build this super weapon. There is Hester Shaw's character, played by Hera Hilmer, who has got a personal vendetta against Hugo Weaving's character, and she wants to get on London in order to try and assassinate him because he killed her mother years previously. And Robert Sheenan plays Tom, a naive young man that works in the museum in the city of London. He ends up teaming up with Hester as they get ejected from London, and they go on a quest in order to stop Hugo Weaving's dastardly plan. So this, I can understand to some degree why this maybe didn't spark something with the audiences. I mean, number one, at the time, every other teenage type novel was being turned into a film because of the success of those films. Everything was being done, and I think people were getting tired by it. So I think it was made at the wrong time for a start. Number two, I'd never heard of the novels. I suspect many of you at the time hadn't heard of the novels. So it wasn't Peter Jackson bought the rights to these novels, I think in about 2007 or 9 or something like that. So he obviously was aware of them. But it's not like, if someone says, oh, I'm going to adapt the Lord of the Rings books, or I'm going to adapt, I don't know, Game of Thrones sort of thing. Everybody knows generally what those properties are, but when someone says I'm going to adapt the Mortal Engines series of books, I'm sure it has its niche market out there, and I'm sure it has its niche fan base, but the masses aren't aware of it. So you've either got to go big or go home, and unfortunately they took a risk. They went big with a big budget and a big advertising campaign, but it didn't work. They took a risk and it didn't work. But that's not really a fair reflection of the film itself, because I think it's got some really cool ideas. The whole idea of these huge cities, traveling the wasteland, swallowing up smaller cities. And the opening of this film is spectacular, and I think the effects here, for the most part, are really well done. Um, I, I I really like that idea of like these huge cities, like thundering along the wasteland, seeing smaller cities down on the ground in front of them, and just swallowing them up, and like taking all their tech and goods and all that kind of stuff. It just works really. Hugo Weaving's character, we know he can play the villain and play it quite well, and his character is, you know, suitably villainous, I suppose. Quite predictable, the whole film, really, in that sense, in regards to how he gets his comeuppance and all that kind of stuff. But, still, he does a good job here. And I was quite interested in the journey that Hester and Tom go on as well. I didn't really buy their romance, but I enjoyed the journey that they went on. And I particularly enjoyed the character of Shrike, played by Stephen Lang, who is this humanoid creature that is essentially mechanical. I'm not really sure how it works, sort of thing, but he kind of raised Hester Shaw from like a young girl, and she made a particular promise to him that she didn't fulfill, so he kind of is trying to track her down and relentlessly. I really liked that character. I like the idea of that. I don't think they explored it particularly well enough. They could have made that very dark and quite sinister in a lot of ways, but because it's like for a teeny audience, really, this film, it doesn't really pull the trigger on the gritty, dark, violent side that I suspect this film could have been. If I think they'd, like I say, if they'd have dialed up the darkness in it and made it a bit more mature in regards to some of the storytelling, I think they probably would have had a better chance of this doing well. Unfortunately, I think they were too set on trying to deliver a quite a tame action adventure film, because by the end it did get quite Star Warsy by the end, and it got very effects heavy by the end. And there's this big battle going off, and this big, huge super weapon being fired at this huge wall that no one's ever penetrated before. And that's like, once you get past that wall, that's like, that's the place to be. But no one can get through there using violence previously. So Hugo Weaving's character wants to use this super weapon to get in there. But huge battle at the end, and there's lots going off, and there's people dying, and then Shrike turns up, and then, there's these flying things and shooting and explosions, and it got a bit too, I think, silly by the end for me. And I think there were characters kind of dying that didn't mean a great deal to me because I didn't know them. They weren't particularly well introduced into the whole film, and poorly fleshed out characters. But as a watchable, fun, popcorn-friendly film, I think this is definitely far better than its loss at the box office would suggest. It's certainly what I don't think was a loss because of the quality of the film. I do think, if this film had been made with, 40% of the budget, and they eased off a little bit, and they tailored it to the right audience and made a couple of tweaks here and there, I think this could have easily been quite a success, and they might have been able to continue and make more. But as I said, they went big, but it didn't work out, unfortunately. But the film itself is definitely worth checking out. If you've been curious about checking out Mortal Engines, and a bit like me, you never really pull the trigger and could be bothered to check it out, well, there is a film here, guys, I'm here to tell you, and it's well made, it's entertaining, fun, good effects, and it's probably a shame that it didn't do better than it did. So, yeah, let me know in the comments, guys, what your thoughts are on Mortal Engines. I will, of course, be back with plenty more reviews and content on the channel. If you're new to the channel, please click the subscribe button. Please don't forget to like the video and comment. And of course, I will be back, and I will see you very, very soon.